Okay, so gaming and tech. We have Capcom Next was a thing that happened over the weekend. We got some Dead Rising news out of that. That's pretty freaking awesome. Assassin's Creed is going to be modernizing older games, which has never gone over poorly in the past. Read the sarcasm. And then Nintendo thinks they have the Switch 2 launch figured out because they don't think there's going to be much of a scalping issue this time around like there was with the original Switch. So all of that and a little bit more. Let's get into gaming and tech. Welcome, nerds, to this week's edition of the Gaming and Tech News, generally speaking. Now, I'm no Linus or Spawnwave or Gamers Nexus or insert channel that is dedicated to the tech and gaming news here. That's not what you're getting here. This is just enough to keep you informed, generally speaking. We do this just about every week as part of a larger news show called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel. You can find that linked down in the description or at the end of this video. Now let's talk about some gaming and tech and maybe even some like photo, video kind of news as well. Starting things off with Starfield, we have a follow-up for Starfield. Bethesda has fixed some issues with the creations side of Starfield. They're trying to make it resemble more closely the Skyrim creations, and it's kind of fairly minor at this point, so nothing that's going to fix any of the issues that most of the community has with Starfield still to this day. Is that patch coming? Who knows yet? Probably not, but I don't know. We'll see. But this isn't it. So either way, if you had issues with creations, they should be fixed at this point. That brings us into trailers, which also brings us into the Capcom Next conversation. Capcom Next happened over the weekend, got us the trailer for Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, which DRDR, right? Ooh, that's kind of silly. Anyway, so September 18th is when it's launching. This is going to be just basically a reskinning of the original game. They're going to change the control scheme, so it'll feel a little bit more modern with the control scheme. But as far as story goes, it doesn't look like they're adding anything content-wise to the game. Are there going to be new Easter eggs in it? Probably. But is it going to be like significantly different story? No, not bloody likely. But I mean, the updating of the visuals and the updating of the gameplay, the mechanics of the gameplay, I think is going to be enough because this game is pretty solid in and of itself. So yeah, like I said, the launch is September 19th. It is coming out for PlayStation 5 as well as Xbox Series consoles and PC. And the other noteworthy thing about this is it is only going to be $50. It's not going to be $60 like we've seen a lot of other remasters coming out at. It's definitely not going to be $70, which a lot of the modern gaming games are coming out at. And anything beyond that's really just out of the question. But Capcom Next, the only other significant thing really to come out of the Capcom Next presentation from the weekend was Resident Evil. They confirmed that Resident Evil 9 is in active development right now, and that's kind of it. So let's move on. We have some regular ass news we're going to get into now. The big one here, Assassin's Creed. So Ubisoft has announced that they are going to be remastering older Assassin's Creed games to quote unquote modernize them. That's not a red flag, really? Is it? Oh, it is? Of course it is, because we saw what they did with the Assassin's Creed Shadow, whatever the hell, where they they took an actual historical figure, which is cool, and they did something very not historically accurate with it, which is kind of a little bit dumb, but I don't know. Gameplay wise, I haven't seen anything from it because I don't think it's launched at this point, but I'm not keeping that close of tabs on it necessarily. It just feels a little like, yeah, you're stretching it a little bit. You definitely are trying to just check those boxes. And then they're going to kind of extend that to their older games now by modernizing them. That just feels wrong in so many levels. Let's move on, shall we? Our other piece of news this week has to do with the Nintendo Switch 2. The investors' call happened over the last week. And the Furukawa, Shuntaro Furukawa, who is the president of Nintendo right now, not the, I was thinking for a second President of America, but it's not the Nintendo of America, it's Nintendo as a whole. He outlined some measures that they're going to be taking to prevent scalping when it comes to the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, which they still have not officially announced exactly what that is going to entail. We'll get to that at the end though. So the two big things here that they're going to do to combat scalpers, the two big things that are in play rather, that they're going to utilize to combat scalpers is one, and the first one leads into the second one. One is that the semiconductor shortage has been taken care of. It is no longer an issue. Because if you remember back when the Nintendo Switch originally launched, there was a semiconductor shortage and that lasted for some time. So it was very difficult to get your hands on a Nintendo Switch, which honestly is probably part of the reason why they're still selling so well, because it was so long before most people get their hands on them. So that's been taken care of. It is no longer an issue. They have plenty of semiconductors, very likely because they started going into production much earlier this generation, which then leads us into the second thing is they plan on launching on day one with many more consoles than they have with previous console launches. It sounds like they're at the very least trying to get more than the original Switch, though I would venture they're going to like GameCube levels of day one console numbers. So yeah, those both are going to go a long way to stop scalpers from buying up as many as they can and then selling them for triple the price. So and then the recap for the announcement of the Nintendo Switch. We did get confirmation earlier this year that there is going to be a proper announcement for the successor console to the Nintendo Switch, right now being dubbed by the media as Nintendo Switch 2, but likely that won't be the name. A Super Switch? I don't know. But it's going to happen by the end of the fiscal year for Nintendo. So if you'll remember, fiscal year is not the end of the calendar year. The end of the calendar year is December. End of the fiscal year for Nintendo is March. So very likely the end of the winter is when we are going to get the proper announcement of the Nintendo Switch successor. All right, that is what we have for regular ass news. This week's suggestion for gaming and tech is an OG Super Nintendo game. Honestly, just because I really dig platformers. Donkey Kong Country, original Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo, I believe is up on NSO right now. You can download it if you are paying the monthly fee to get those kinds of things. Or you can emulate it because you probably have a copy of it that you've paid for, and so that's technically not illegal. Or you can just, play the HD remaster of the Wii, or the Switch game is the one that's getting remastered, which isn't going to be the same, or Wii. I had it right. This is just platforming at honestly one of its best iterations. The two of the best platforming games ever released both exist on the Super Nintendo. Obviously, I'm talking about Super Mario World as well as Donkey Kong Country OG, and that is your suggestion for the week. If you've never played it before, then this is the height of platform gaming. This is just really, really good stuff. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means, just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.